get the total so far this month for business. And then you get the total in. And here are the totals over here. This is the in page. These are out pages business. Now we got to take these totals, for instance, postage, $3.85, and put it in the postage column. You hold the camera, okay? While I write it in the postage column. Postage, $3.85. Okay, $3.85. And then here's all the other columns, print and technical and so forth. Over here on this page is all personal. So that's how you go from daily to week and week to month. Well, folks, we got on videotapes, so they're on their way on schedule. We didn't make this, but we took the big one that goes to nickels, and that costs $5.50 about. And then each one of these is going to cost $1.60. And we sent a $40 money order to Production Central to make a Sony DV cam dub for that crazy QPTV board, Queens Public Television. And now we're going to staple these and label them and stuff them into these envelopes. We fed the birds and the animals about 10 times, and that always gives us joy. So, I'll be reading it to you momentarily. This is the judge, and it's the biggest one of all. It's noticing the appeal to be heard. It's the docket. That's 12 pages. It's the appellant's brief. Which I will read you. And it's the with the attachments that went with the notice of appeal, all these very good arguments that, you know, Kleinbaum Natalia never gave Dixon any jurisdiction over Glendora. And Dixon's conduct and the complaint against Nasty Natalia, Glendora's, 100 pages. And then Glendora versus Nasty Natalia in small claims court. And then Glendora opening statement. And then her ad hominem. And then finally Glendora ends up suing Bully Dixon and his wife, the village of Chatham, Chatham Police Department, Nasty Natalia, Brat's sister Lydia, Marie mother, father, brother Carlos, and Preferred Country Properties in the United States District Court in Chicago, and that's 200 pages. Remember that? I worked on that 2 hours a day from April, all of April, I guess, and half of May, and finally it was. So this is Nichols, the appeals judge, ready to go. $5.30. That's more than it costs to appeal. It costs $5 to appeal. So take a good look at it, and bye-bye. Folks, it's 8:45, and the affirmation of service says that I have until midnight to serve this. And that's to the appeals judge. And this is to Natalia's lawyer. And this is to the village of Chatham and the police department. And to Tim Bakshian, Commission on Judicial Conduct. Primadora, Deputy Judge in charge of the administration of the courts outside of New York City. Lippman, the judge in charge of the administration of the courts. And he does the courts in New York City. And Ceresia, administrative judge, who should have straightened out George Dixon. Judith Kay, and I do mean Judith Kay, Chief Judge of the State of New York. Clerk of the Court, Chatham Village Court, that's Mrs. George Dixon. And Preferred Country Properties, Nasty Natalia, Brat's sister Lydia, Mother Marie, Father, Brother Carlos, Preferred Country Properties. And now they will be served. Time that we serve the Center for Judicial Accountability Incorporated this accumulation of papers, and a similar package goes to George McDermott, Great American Hero. They are both great American heroes, Elena Sassauer and George McDermott. Look at this. This must be 5 pounds of joy. Look at the size of this tomato that my neighbor Jane Dean brought to me last night. And by the way, folks, she took me to the post office at 8:45. Look at that, out of her garden. She and John, aren't they wonderful gardeners? And a nice piece of blueberry cake. And a banana. Why are these people so good to their neighbor? And cucumbers. He made beautiful pickles. Delectable. Great. And wax beans and green beans. No, these are all wax beans. Together, together. You ask the Lord's blessing. You know what hymn really goes with this? What is it? How is it? Come, ye thankful people, come. Raise the song of harvest home. All is safely gathered in, ere the winter storm begins. God our Maker doth provide for our wants to be supplied. Come to his own temple, come, raise the song of harvest home. I want to tell you that last night Jane Dean drove me in the dark to the post office for Glendora to serve the appellant's brief on preferred country properties versus Glendora. One of the wickedest landlords, frauds, and attempts to deceive. Well, it must be. It was wicked enough from here. It took 20 hours to do that paper, and it cost $78 to print and post it. And now I've got to set up the videotape and videotape it for you. And this is this beautiful August morning, so we go outdoors and video. First off, folks, I have to get a picture for you of this blue sky. It's not as perfect. It's not perfect the way it was Sunday. There is a haze, and yesterday there was a haze a little bit, but it's a lot better than what we've had most of the summer. And it's too bad this was the first thing scheduled this morning after the morning work, because the ground is mucho wet, and you can feel September coming because the dew doesn't get off the grass as fast as it did in June and July. Okay, I think we're ready. This poor little ant has problems with the... Can you see the ant? You see the ant? You think the ant will make it? And you think you dry out? You think you make it? Alright. This was, started to write this on August 21st, finished it yesterday, August 23rd. As I told you, it was served at 9 p.m. in the black dark last night. Supreme Court, County of Columbia, State of New York, United States of America, and it's to be argued by Glendora. And its preferred country properties is the plaintiff appellee, and Glendora is the defendant appellant. And it was before George C. Dixon in the Chatham Village Court, and that's the index number. And this is the appellant's brief. This is Glendora's brief. You get a good shot over a picture of the camera, don't you? And this chair is wet. And here is the docket. I made this docket. This is the job of the county, of the clerk, not of the village clerk, to keep a docket. But the Chatham Village Court doesn't do anything right. So I made this docket, and that took innumerable hours. And I don't know whether I should read this to you or not, this docket. It all started way back in November of 2003 when the furnace went off. Well, it really started in August when it took Nasty Natalia 9 days to fix the kitchen sink faucet, put a washer in it. That took 9 days. And so, and also she didn't clean up the property. I had to pay people to clean up the property. But I was right. It was easier to pay people to do it than it was to get her to do it. And in November when the furnace stopped, and it was 35 degrees, I didn't want to wait 9 days for it to get fixed, and I called her place, and it was a recorder, and I wanted it done, because I was really getting sick. It was close to hypothermia, and I asked my people at church what I should do, and the father of one of them is a furnace man, and he came and he fixed it, and it was nice. We were all warm again. Thank you, church. And the bill was $183, and as soon as it came, I paid it. And then I asked Natalia to pay it, but she didn't pay it. So I took it out of the rent, which you're supposed to do. And then when it came time to fix the kitchen sink again, this was the drain. The water was just pouring out of it, and it would have ruined the place. And I didn't want to wait 9 days for Natalia to fix that. So I asked my neighbor to fix it, and he did a great job, and he got the parts, and he only got $10 for his labor. And that was $26, and so I sent the bill. I paid that, of course, immediately, and I sent the bill to Natalia, and she never paid it, so I deducted that from the rent. And then this was an apartment, and Natalia never told me in the beginning that she expected the tenant to pay for the water. You don't pay for water in an apartment, do you, folks? And so these water bills kept coming, and they amounted to about $30 a quarter, and there were about 3 of them, so it was about $120. And so Natalia was being nasty all along. It was too bad. And on the day after St. Patrick's Day, a man came in a white truck, and I was sitting on the sun porch, and it looked ominous to me, so I went into the house, and I locked both of the doors, and I watched the man from the windows, and surely enough, he was serving a paper. And he looked like a cop, because he had a crew cut. You know how cops think it's so nice to be military and have a crew cut. And he gave himself away, and I watched him. He never saw me. And it did turn out to be a petition for a 3-day eviction. Now that's insane. For non-payment of rent. It was a fraud. It was a lie. The rent was paid. And to make it a 3-day eviction, you know, that's just sadism. So the court date on it was for March the 23rd, within 3, 4, 5, 6 days. And I looked at the petition, and I could see its defects right away. It had no index number, and it was all wrong. The rent was paid. There was no rent owing. And it was all a hoax and a fraud and a frame-up. And that was Thursday the 18th, and on Friday I gathered up the mud off of my shoes every time I went into the house and out of the house. My shoes were caked in mud, and it took me, you know, half an hour to wash them, and then it took them a day to dry, and I had to buy extra footwear. And so some of this caked mud, I took it and I scraped it off of the shoes, and I put it on a piece of white paper in a box top. And I took it up on Friday the 19th of March, and I went into Natalia's office, and I put the caked mud on her desk, because I had asked for a remedy before for this mud. There's no need of that. You can put down stones or flagstones. You can put down things. The whole driveway and the whole entrance to both doors doesn't have to be mud. You know, there was just negligence and poor ownership. Excuse me. So I put it on a desk. She was behind her desk, and in an outrageous temper fit, she shoved the box cover toward me, and I jumped back, and the mud went all over her carpet. And then she called the police. Now that's false alarm. So you see, Nasty Natalia is building up a terrible case for herself. So Friday, after that, I had to go to Hudson, and I bought newspapers. And when I came back Friday at 3 p.m., I sat down with this petition, and I refuted every paragraph of it. Practically every phrase of it was defective. It was fatally defective. There was no way that this petition could stand. It had no index number. No way it could stand up in court. So I went after it, and I wrote for about 3 or 4 hours on it, and then I started my complaint. Glendora versus Nasty Natalia, brat sister Lydia, Mother Marie, father, brother Carlos, and preferred country properties. This is in Chatham, New York, County of Columbia. The next day was Saturday, and early in the morning, I continued to refute the petition until it was done, and then I wrote out the other things that Natalia had done over the 6 or 7 month period that were against the New York State real property law, and of course the petition was against the New York State real property actions and proceedings law. No in personam service and no regular mail service. And it's supposed to be nail and mail. And this cop, his name turned out to be McDowell, Michael McDowell, the cop, did not nail and mail, he just pushed it into the doorknob. And then I started to write that complaint. And pretty much all day Saturday, and Sunday morning before church I wrote on it an hour. And then after church I came home, and by 3 o'clock Sunday afternoon I'd really finished the complaint. And it was 100 pages. And I wrote the summons to affix to the complaint. Or to affix the complaint to the summons. And later that evening I started calling the rentals. I had every newspaper that was available all around. The Register Star and the Independent and all of them. And I called all of the rentals, and I talked to some people, but anyway, I talked to one man, and he sounded nice, and so we made an appointment for 5:30 Monday. This would be Monday the 22nd, day before court. And it took all day Monday to print that complaint, about 10 copies, 100 pages. It just took all day to print it. And during that time, Nasty Natalia banged on a window and put up a notice that she was going to have an inspection on Wednesday at such and such a thing. She and a technician, and this technician was named Ed, and he's a handyman, and it was Ed who put the kitchen sink faucet, when he put the faucets back together, he put them on backwards. So instead of going clockwise, they were going counterclockwise, and the other one was going the other way. And that's a test that they give you in psychology, right? You're used to doing, they give you tests and have you do left to right for 10 times, and then they reverse it and see if you can do it right to left to see what your adaptability is. It's just crazy, these tests they have in psychology. As a psychology major, I became quite disenchanted with the whole thing and never pursued psychology, except for Smith College, where I was offered a student teacher, in the school. I was a graduate, and so they offered me this student teacher position, but I never took it. I was in California, at the Hampton, Massachusetts to take it. But Smith College is a very prestigious girls' college, women's college, Ivy League. So this notice on the window, and then she slammed the window and disappeared, and I was busy printing, and I had signs up at the door that said, "Do not enter. Possession is under the name, is under the, possession is by the tenant." I'm telling you all this in case you run into a landlord like this, and there are millions of them like this. And I hope that this will show you how you can protect yourself. You don't have to take this. Well, it wasn't until after 5 o'clock that I finished printing the complaint and summons, and it was too late to serve it on anybody. And so I got to the new place at 5:30, and I liked it. And I gave the man $100 to keep it. And the rent was only $315. And the electric and the heat and the stove were all by an electric company. You didn't have to bother with kerosene and propane and all those things. Let me insert that one of the most fraudulent things Natalia did was that she never told us we had to pay the heat. Had she told us, we would have said, "Well, thank you, it's a nice place, but we don't want to pay the heat." And for 50 years, we've never paid heat. Heat and hot water have always been paid by the landlord. Franklin and I refused to own a house because it's such a headache, and so we always rent it and let the landlord do all those things. But it always included the heat and hot water, and had she told us that, honestly, the way a realtor should, anybody a member of the National Association of Realtors should know better, and so she made us pay the heat, and it was $500 a year that we paid. And when the furnace broke down that day, I asked Chatham Fuel to come and fix it, and they said, "Well, we'll charge $120 just to come out there." It was a Saturday. We'll charge you $120 just to come out there. And she made us take Chatham Fuel when we could have found the propane and the kerosene more cheaply elsewhere. So the whole thing was a fraud. And so I was telling you about the new place. It was all electric. And it was all through the electric company, which made things much cleaner and much nicer. Next day was Tuesday, and a friend served Natalia the summons and complaint. Lydia locked the door, and through the glass door and the glass windows, you could see Lydia very carefully. She locked it, and so my friend served her by putting it at the right at the stoop. So she was served, and Kleinbaum didn't have to be served because this was a new action. This was not a counterclaim now. This was a new lawsuit, and Kleinbaum had not appeared as a lawyer on this lawsuit, so he didn't have to be served. And I went over to the court and tried to serve it there. But there's no court. They're gone all week. The only time they're there is Tuesday night. So it came Tuesday night, the hearing, and I have an audio tape of this, and I really should play it for you. I don't know. Let me consider, folks. Should I stop videotaping now and go research that audio tape and play it for you? I think that really is the sensible thing to do. All right, let me tell you a couple of jokes and I'll go do that. Bob says he doesn't know how old the used car is that he bought, but the odometer is in Roman numerals. Marilyn calls her car Flattery because it never gets her anywhere. And Ed and Priscilla had a car that broke down so often, they bought themselves the perfect second car, a tow truck. And why does Joanne baby her car? How does she baby her car? Well, it won't go anywhere without a rattle. A boy was asked to describe the game of chess, and he said chess is a game where two people sit opposite each other and stare at each other and never say anything and barely move. And I liken that to the United States District Courts. And Ed said that he was so ugly as a kid that his parents hired another kid to play his part in the home movies. And when Halloween came, they didn't put a pumpkin in the window, they just made him stand in the window. And when he said that he's going to run away from home, his father said, put it in writing. And when he played hide and seek, the other children wouldn't come and look for him. And the man was in the maternity ward, and the nurse comes out with a beautiful baby in her arms, and she says to the new father, well, what'd you want, a boy or a girl? He said, I wanted a girl. The nurse says, sorry, this is a boy. The father says, oh, that's okay. That's my second choice. Okay, let me go find that tape and play it for you. This would be March 23rd, Tuesday night, circa 7 p.m. before George C. Dixon, Justice, Chatham Village Court, County of Columbia, State of New York, United States of America. And you will hear Dixon, you will hear Glendora, you will hear Natalia was there but didn't say anything, and you will hear Kleinbaum, James Kleinbaum. Woohoo! My seat's wet. Morning dew in August doesn't leave very fast. Well, I looked on the contents cards on the index, and I found it. And it's audio tape 2141. And here it is. And then I started to play it, and right away it jammed. So I took the tape out and tried to get rid of the jam, and then I discovered the tape is twisted. And when the tape twists, that means it plays it backwards. So I thought I would splice it and try to get the twist out, and then I thought I'd try to put another twist in it and get it to play frontwards. And it did. I could hear conversations, and they were correct. And then it's going along, and then it jams inside. See, first of all, it jammed along this track. I got off track here. But look inside. You see inside there? That tape is supposed to go around this post up here. How do we know? Because you look at the good side, and you see the tape is going around the post up there. And then you have the problem that there's a double loop. A double loop. I don't think that I can fix this. If it would travel, if it would go onto the take-up reel here, I could splice it maybe and get out stuff that we don't want, although it's too bad to ruin a record of other things. So now, this has been a Sony program. I don't think Sony really makes tapes that well, or maybe nobody does. But you often have this problem of jamming and twisting and no take-up. So what are we going to do about this? I can tell you what happened. I think that's what we'll have to do, because I've worked on this since I kept a record of it right here. Here's the record. I started working on it at what, at 9:15? And there was a 9:15 joy and the 9:30 joy. And we just missed the 9:45 joy. But that would be an hour. A thing like this can take all day. I know Pat Galino might have a good chance at fixing it. But you see, a microcassette, you can't take it apart. It doesn't have screws. It's all melted plastic. If it was a VHS, you could take it apart and you could rethread it. But I don't think you can rethread this one from the outside. I'm surprised it will even play, being off track as it is all along here. Okay, so I'll tell you what happened. Let me put this mess away and I'll tell you what. So I get the tape back onto the right side of the front side. This is the front side. And the tape is back onto this spool. So I have to put it away. And wait for an inspiration on that. You see that tape is not twisted. Is it? Or can't you tell? I'll get an inspiration maybe. That has happened before. And see if we possibly could fix it. Or think of a way. We got a cute little animal out here. I have to show you my stomach first, but see if I can guess what the animal up there. What kind of an animal is that? Cute, huh? Saw that animal once before. Alright. So, back to Natalia. The hearing that night, the principal thing that came out of it is that I made the point that Natalia and Kleinbaum had not given this court jurisdiction over Glendora, pursuant to the New York State Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law, because you have to have personal service, and the law has to be strictly construed, particularly that law. That's the reason they made that law. They had the real property law, but it wasn't clear enough as to exactly what the actions and the proceedings should be. And so, and with a quoting of all that law, Dixon's head was spinning, and Kleinbaum was doing his usual whining and saying, oh, well, we have a signed affidavit here by Michael McDowell that he served it. And I said, if there's going to be any dispute as to jurisdiction, I said, I want a Travis hearing. And a Travis hearing is where the server comes forth and you question the you question the server, and you can pretty much make up your mind if he's telling the truth or not, or if he actually did serve it. So there was no way, that he could claim that he had personal service. But particularly I wanted you to hear that tape so that you could hear the acrimony of George C. Dixon and his total ineptitude to conduct a court hearing. You can see what was going on. They're trumping up a whole lot of charges, and they're all going to split it. Now, this is information and belief, my personal information and belief, and he's going, by hook or by crook, he's going to get this money. So it was all very clear on the audio tape, and I'm sorry, but God must have a plan. It's really clear when you have something like 2,000 audio tapes and the one that you want to play goes bad on you. So we're talking about Tuesday the 23rd, and then on Wednesday the 24th, a friend was helping me move heavy stuff, and donating, offering his truck, and it was very, very nice of him. And Natalia appears on the property with a stranger, whom she doesn't identify, and she gets in the way, where we're trying to load the truck, and she's making all kinds of ad hominem remarks, and actually picking up a piece of my property, my gasoline jug, and putting it somewhere else. My property. On the property over which I have the premise, the possession of the premises. And so making a fool of herself and a nuisance of herself. And I should have stopped right then and there and called the police and got her for trespassing. But I wanted to get these things moved. This was the only day and the only hour that my friend could have his truck available, and I wanted to get this important job done. So I just let her go, and I didn't say anything, and I videotaped her. And she took pictures of me, by the way, when I didn't want to have pictures taken of me. And that was an invasion of privacy. It was all kinds of things. A mad, mad woman. Mad woman. Next day's Thursday. By the way, she came down and banged on the window again, took down one sign and put up another sign and said the inspection would be on Thursday. So next day, Thursday, I waited around all morning for this inspection. The hours were given as from 9 to 12, and I had the video camera all set up, and I had the audio tapes all rolling, 2 of them, I think. It was a good thing as compared to what happened today. And just about, I thought she wasn't going to make it, and about 5 minutes to noon, she comes in with a so-called technician. I'd put up all kinds of barricades, brooms, and a rolling desk, and litter pans, and all kinds of things to stop her at the first door. But she moved all of those and came into the inner door, and she rapped on the door, and the minute she did, I called the Chatham police. And I said that who I was and what the address was, and that I was a tenant and the landlord was here, and under the laws, and I stated the laws, that a landlord can inspect or come into the premises only in an extreme emergency. Well, this was no extreme emergency. And the minute she heard me call the police, she galloped away like a gazelle. She was gone in no time. She got into her truck and backed out, and Ed got into his truck and backed out. Now why? Why? She knew fully well that she was doing something illegal. And that was the last time, thank heaven, that she bothered me. And Thursday afternoon, I sent the security deposit and the first month's rent to the nice new man and secured that place. And I did it by money order, postal money order, so you wouldn't have to worry about whether the check was good or anything. So I made things nice for him. And then I think Thursday somebody else helped me with moving some things. All my neighbors were very, very nice. And somebody else helped me with moving some things. And Friday, I guess it was just more moving. And Saturday was more moving. And the kitty cats, I was taking care of the 4 kitty cats. And it was sad because I knew this was going to be my last. I didn't know which would be the last day, but I said it could be today, that my last day with them. It was very, very sad, and they were also happy with me. And Saturday was more moving. And Sunday, I went to church, and for the first time I was late for church a little bit. But I had made 2 trips. Well, one to the new place, take things to the new place, and 2 to take things to the old place and to position them. And then to church, and right after church the kids helped me and did another load, then another load. It was all a sequence of load. It was a sequence of this. You pack, you load, you drive, you unload, and you position, and you come back again and do it some more. And finally, by Sunday night, everything was cleared out, and the 1980 Lincoln was in a good, safe place off of the property. And Sunday night, I vacated. Well, the first chance I had, I sat down Monday morning, and I wrote my opening statement for the court for the 30th of March, a week from the initial court appearance. I wrote out this opening statement, and I served it on everybody. And you couldn't find anybody around the court there, so I left it in the chair of the so-called bench table. And so that was done, and I had to eat out because, and I don't like to eat out, and because Natalia had fouled up my ability to get a meal at home. And Tuesday, I prepared for court, and Tuesday night I went to court, and I tried all day to file my opening statement and to file the proof of service of my, oh, there was another lawsuit. Darn, I forgot about that. I didn't tell you that on March the 23rd, the night of the first hearing, that I filed a new lawsuit. And it was Glendora versus Nasty Natalia, Brat Sister Lydia, Mother Marie, Father, Brother Carlos, and Preferred Country Properties. And Joanne Dixon was the clerk, and she didn't want to make it out as Nasty Natalia. And she asked me to put things, typewrite things, or get somebody to typewrite them for me. And anyway, she made out the summons and the little paper that they have. There's 2 little papers. And that was Thursday that I had a neighbor serve that and gave the neighbor boy $20 to do it. And Natalia was served personally. She asked the neighbor boy to come in. So the service on that was perfect. And I tried to, the second court appearance, which is March the 30th, Tuesday night, a week later, I wanted to file the affidavit of service. for that, to show that it was ready to be argued. And I wanted to file my opening statement and get them date stamped. And I asked 6 times. I came to court around 6 o'clock, and I waited, and I asked the policeman, and I asked Dixon, so-called justice, to see the clerk so I could get these dates stamped, and he blocked me 6 times. So finally, when the clerk did come out, when the case was up there, all of my attention went to Joanne Dixon and getting these 2 papers date stamped. And while I'm attending to this, ex parte Kleinbaum is saying to Dixon that she vacated, and you better get a statement from her that she did vacate. That was on Sunday, the 28th, I vacated. And Dixon said, did you vacate? And I'm busy thinking about these things and getting them date stamped, and I said, did I vacate? And he goes like this, and shakes his head and goes into the histrionics. And I said, yes. And I didn't even have time to think whether I wanted to answer Dixon or not, whether it was in my favor to say whether I vacated or not. But right then and there, that should have ended everything. I vacated. The action was over. And then, sleazy Kleinbaum says to Dixon, we want to adjourn until April 13th, which was the date of my new lawsuit against Natalia. We want to adjourn until that date because we have damages. Well, the thing about damages is that no complaint had ever been filed about damages. This was a new complaint, and they never filed it. So that was all illegal. And so I never had a chance to say whether I wanted an adjournment or not. And I never had a chance to say the damages would be a new complaint, and they can't ride in on this old one, that this case was over. It was for a 3-day eviction, and I voluntarily left. I didn't give her a chance to do the eviction. I left voluntarily and happily. I didn't want anything more to do with Natalia and Preferred Country Properties. And if you go to Chatham, I would advise you not to have anything to do with Preferred Country Properties. Well, you won't, I don't think, after you hear this story. This, rather I should say this report. Well, I think the next day, the 31st, I sat down and I devoted 2 hours a day to writing a motion that George Dixon recuse. And I spent 2 hours a day on that, up until April the 13th, which was when I summoned Natalia to court on Glendora versus Nasty Natalia. And so on that's the court proceeding of April the 13th. I do have an audio tape too of the court proceeding on March the 30th, but that is not, it doesn't tell much. And what I've told you is about all that happened. There were quite a few denials of my due process, and I've told you those. So now, let me see if I can find the audio tape. I think I can find it all right. These are the little index cards that list the contents of each tape. And let's see if I can cue it up, and let's see if the tape is all right and not jammed. Okay, this is Glendora, Chat with Glendora, on 45 TV stations and on the internet at www.chatwithglendora.com. And I am telling the story of an extremely deceitful landlord named Natalia and her company Preferred Country Properties. And also I'm telling the story of her liar for hire, James Kleinbaum, and I'm telling the story of George Dixon, village justice of the Justice Court of the Chatham Village, and of his wife, who was the clerk at that court. Okay, so let's see if we can. It's Werner Wolf used to say, not von Braun. Let's go to the videotape. Now again, this is on the night of April the 13th. I'm waiting. And I go up to Dixon. I kept asking, to file my papers. I wanted to get them date stamped, and I kept being blocked. And then I had some questions that I wanted to ask, procedural questions. Well, finally I went up to Dixon, who was sitting at his table, and I said, "Can I ask a question?" I said, "May I ask the clerk a question?" And Dixon said, "She's busy right now." So I asked him, I said, "Should this be filled in?" This was on my summons of Natalia and the service of it. And I said, "Should that be filled in?" He said, "No." And I asked him if something else should be filled in. And he said, "No."
That's okay? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So I went up to Dixon again. He was sitting at the table, which he calls the bench. And I asked, "May I see the file jacket?" And he says, "What?" I said, "The file jacket." And he wanted to know what that was. And I said, "As to the case." And he said, "No." So let me tell you that.
See the file jacket? What? Yeah, I see the file jacket. What's that? For this case.
So let me find out what next happened while I'm waiting for this case to go on. So I got there I was told to be there at 6:30. I got there at 6. And I'm sitting there and waiting, and it's 6:25. My recorder's telling me it's 6:20, it's 6:25. And there's those two things I told you about. And then Kleinbaum goes by, who was Natalia's lawyer, and I said,
Are you an officer of the court? Are you a state actor? Are you a state actor? State actor.
so let me go on and see if I find anything else that's recorded on this. So a police officer goes by, and it happens to be McDowell, and I said I wanted to go see the clerk of the court because I wanted these things date stamped. And he says, "You can wait and do it later." Well, I listened to the whole tape down to the point where the hearing started, And with George Dixon Court, nobody says, preferred properties versus Glendora. Nobody calls the case. You just watch, and when you see Kleinbaum and Natalia sit down at the table, then you go up to the table. That's wrong. The cases should be called. Likewise, they're never adjourned. The people just drift off. Okay, I found it. And so now I'm going to play it for you. Now I'll keep the close-up onto the tape recorder. And the actors are Chatham Village Court on April the 13th, 04. George C. Dixon, Justice. Mrs. George C. Dixon, the clerk. Natalia, landlord. And Glendora, tenant. And James Kleinbaum, lawyer. Kleinbaum translated as Little Tree. Okay, folks, here it is.
copy release? No, I never did. You never got a copy release? No, I never did. I think that she has to show them to me first before she takes them to the court. No, I thought we should teach the book to the court. I could see it after the Sunday. No, I have to see it first. I have to see it first. Okay. All right, take a note of that. I'm not allowing you to see the evidence that goes to me in the court before you see it. All right? Okay. I don't think they feel anything. Are you done? Yes. You see this other condition? That give us the other for evidence? Yes, they are, but I will hear all the time to go. And copies of the pictures? Yep. And that's 3 and this is 4. Three. Proof of that? Will permit it? They were told to bring all those things. That were torn Were you present when I signed the lease? That's what I recollection. Yeah. Did I have anybody with me? No question the witness's memory. Yeah, where you going with this, man? He was not there when I signed the lease. Not there when I signed the lease. Did you date it when you signed it or did not date it when you signed it? When did you sign it? What was the date that you signed it? What conversation did you and I have when you were present when I signed the lease? Well, what did you say? Did you give me a copy of the release? No, that is not the answer to the question. Did you give me a copy of the lease? When? On the day you signed the lease. Really? Did you hand it to me personally? Who did? It has to be with you. The day I signed the lease, Lydia was not there. The relevancy is that she's not telling the truth. And that she did not give me a copy of the lease. You trust the court. You don't trust the court. Relevancy is that you ask her a question and then you answer her response to the court, not to her. Understand? You asked her if she was there. And she said yes. No, she didn't. She said I don't recall. Yeah, that's what I heard. Yes. She said that Lydia was there. Well, that's what she said. Lydia was not there. So, okay, fine. She was there. So what? She said she gave me a copy of the lease. Yes. She did not. I never had a copy of the lease. Never. Okay. Now, about the cat depositing feces around the trailer, whose cats were they? About the what? The cat. Oh, the cat. Depositing feces around the trailer, causing a cleanup. Whose cats were they? Well, how do you know that? you see the cat deposit the feces? Okay. What do my cats look like? I can't say. I didn't feel safe. How do you know anything like that? You had given no proof, she's given no proof of anything like that. So I confess that I would have to pay for any cleanup. She has no witness. Do you have any witnesses for something like that? So I have clearly proved that she has no witness and she has no factual basis for saying that it's my cat who deposited the feces. You have no cat? You don't have a cat? You have any cat? No. You don't have a cat? I do not have cats. What do you have? Do you have any cats at all? No. Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Oh, yes. Now, the damages to the doors claims, where's your proof that the doors weren't like that before I took possession? Who said the damage wasn't there? Who are the other people? Is he here to testify? I don't think we can take this, Your Honor, because this is hearsay. I object to it not allowing him to testify. Well, she answered the question. Oh, okay, so we established that that's hearsay, and I don't have to pay for the door. I'll make that determination, ma'am. All right? Indeed, you will make that determination. I will. You got enough questions you want to ask? But do you have any questions you want to ask? I have to point out to this court that these petitioners did not give you jurisdiction over this. Have not been served pursuant to the New York State Real Property Washington Proceedings Law. What section? In personam. What section? I would have to look it up. In personam service. And, just a minute, please. In personam, and also that you have to serve a copy by regular mail. And also it has to be mail, and it has to be mail or affixed to the door, and it wasn't. This gentleman did not affix it to the door. He just put it in his doorknob. No, he did not. And I will request a traffic hearing if he says he did. I wasn't allowed an objection. I wasn't allowed an objection. Just like now, I wasn't allowed it. And it was the first thing that I was going to say. Oh, yes, it has. It has been submitted to the court. I'm counsel for 6 hours. I've served many. Don't say anything. appeal was served and the court was served. Now, any lease there was broken by an Italian 2-day demand to have me evicted. After that, there was no lease. What did you say? I said the lease was broken by an Italian 2-day demand to have me evicted.
3-day demand. You have a copy of it?
Well, yeah. Well, you got the petition.
What's the 3-day demand? If the petition said a February, then we do it 3 days.
Well, the court certainly has a copy of what they served on me, or what they quote served on me.
Your Honor, the precursor to the following eviction, yes, is an extended rule, a 3-day notice to no regulators or the vacancy to serve. There's a copy of that 3-day notice. I will have you. And also that day of service. So that is also a tax eviction.
Therefore, I maintain that the landlord-tenant relation was broken, and that I don't owe any $435 for April, May, and June.
What basis are you putting that on now?
Okay, I repeat. The landlord tried to evict me with the petition. Quote petition. The petition is fairly defective, but anyway, she wrote. Yes, with this notice, she violated the landlord-tenant relation. Therefore, I have no obligation to pay April, May, and June.
Where did she put the police?
By trying to evict me. And falsely calling me to court.
That is good for what? That wasn't paid?
I don't have to pay for the landlord's tenant.
Including the water bill that you called.
She never said I had to pay a water bill. That's fraud. She never sat down and went over this term with me. She never gave me a copy of her lease. How did I know I had to pay a water bill? Had I known I had to pay a water bill, I would not have taken possession of the premises. So that's fraud. Nor did she ever tell me I had to pay the fee.
Okay, let's see what's happening here. Why did the tape turn off? Hold the phone. A good reason the tape turned off. It's the end of that side. So I'll have to cue it up for the other side. Wait just a minute. That was during the break, and I asked Kleinbaum if the village paid for these copies he was making. He said he had no idea who paid for them. So we're waiting for the Case to resume.
Did you see Glendora open the first door as you left? Did you have any witnesses who saw Glendora open the first door? How do you know that it is damaged that Glendora opened the first door? But main care was there. So, main care could have opened the door. First did not work. That's the main care. First did not work because the contract was broken. The contract was broken, but our door didn't open. Do we have anybody here from main care that testified to that? Most of the program I'm waiting for the argument tonight. No, that was not the question. Let me ask you again. Do you have anybody here tonight? No. To testify for main care? So this is hearsay. How do you prove odor? On what grounds? Okay, Ron, I maintain it is relevant because that's an allegation for me. What's your answer? How do you prove odor? Can you prove odor? What? Court, those pictures of cats, those are not my cats. Yes, those are not my cats. What was the claim about the screen door? All right, that's all right. That's okay. Court, will you please go over your first item at the end of this? No, your list that you were adding up. What was your first item on your list? The 2 months that you were short to pull down. Oh, yeah. Okay, I address the court that I do not have to pay for the landlord credit. Okay. Did I complain to you that the kitchen sink faucet was leaking? What? Did I complain to you? Yeah. Did I ask 9 times why the sink faucet fixed? No, we were fixed on the first act. The second one you took money out. We were never... I'm talking about that, okay? That's the first time. I asked you 9 times to fix it. And it took you 9 days to fix it. Did it take you 9 days to fix it? Absolutely not. Mr. Edwards will fix it. And you did? But did it take you 9 days to get there? Absolutely not. And what is your proof? Thank you for that. And what was the second line of court? Could you tell me that we underpaid water? Tell me about it. Excuse me. That was the question. Would you tell the court, please, what you said to me about water and when? Could you give me a list? Could you go over the list with me? Very relevant. It's flat. And I looked at you requesting that you pay, and we looked at the payment. I referred to the lease after my letter. Yes. I'm talking about at the point of negotiation in the middle of June. Did you sit down and go with the lease and say, you will have to pay water and you will have to pay heat? Did you do that? Absolutely. Tell me about it. I mean, okay. All right. And when is the second line of court? Could you tell me that we underpaid water? Tell me about it. Excuse me. That was the question. Would you tell the court, please, what you said to me about water and when? Could you give me a list? Could you go over the list with me? Very relevant. It's flat. And I looked at you requesting that you pay, and we looked at the payment. I referred to the lease after my letter. Yes. I'm talking about at the point of negotiation in the middle of June. Did you sit down and go with the lease and say, you will have to pay water and you will have to pay heat? Did you do that? Absolutely. Tell me about it. I mean, okay. All right, let me ask you some questions about that. What time of the month was it? Yes. Okay, I object that the court is not giving me an opportunity to... Okay. I'll get questions from me now. You can testify to what you want to testify. The rest of you get on there. Don't mind what questions from me second item is? Could I please know what the second item is? I really. Second item, I just said. And what is the third, please? Third is the damages to the door. And the fourth, please? And the fourth one is the bill for the repair work of the damages. The cleanup? Cleanup, that was something else. What's the cleanup there? Oh, that was before the door. Yes? That was just the statement. That was... And what was the next one after that? I don't understand what's going on here. I really don't understand what's going on. What are you doing here? Why are you representing some cops if you don't understand what's going on? Because I have a constitutional right to be present most during the room, man. You know what I'm saying? Says you represent yourself. That's the same thing. Object that. You know it. That's it. Is this a court of record? This is not a court of record, man. Alright? Now put that down. Check that out, alright? This is not a court of record. However, it's a court of justice. And what you present as proof, alright, will be taken as such. And it will not be intimidated or misused or abused. You understand me? A-B-U-S-E. Intimidated. I-T-I-M-A-T-E-D. 754. What's that down to you? Now, is there any further questions? Can you want to do that? Your cross-examination? Well, I don't understand what's going on. I want to know what the first item is again. What the what? What is the first item, please? Or what's the first claim again? Well, let's see. What would you want? Well, trade the place off the plan. $209 total. That's the 183 and the 26? Okay. Okay, then what? And then the water bill, 111.78. 111.78. 111.78. 111.78 now. And then the damages for the cleanup are 178.61. This is outside. Yes, this is outside. Okay. And then the doors, damage for the doors, $626. What did you say? $626. Okay. And then pretty much, what? 1305. Okay, thank you. Now, that's okay, now you want to make a statement on your behalf? Yes. I have been ready to pay for the furnace, for the landlord of the furnace. And I called the town fuel and they said it was on a Saturday and they charged $150 just to come out. Saturday fuel? Mm-hmm. Saturday fuel, how big is it? She never said any word. How much? She never mentioned any care to me. She always mentioned Saturday fuel. I don't know what any care is. have any heat for 9 days because it was taking Natalia 9 days to fix the carpet. And they said yes. And so they found me a man who came and fixed the furnace. And his name is David Silverman. And he charged $183. Yes. Yes. Oh, I don't know. And then about the $26, the kitchen sink drain was leaking badly, very badly, and to the point of damaging the property. And I didn't want to wait 9 days for Natalia to fix that. So I asked a neighbor to fix it. And he spent, he came twice, and he spent an hour each time. Yeah, and the drain itself was $6, almost $7 and change. Yes, so that's the $26. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I asked Natalia, excuse me, I'm sorry, what were you saying? That's what I would have from the net? I asked Natalia to pay that, and she did not, and I waited until when the rent came due, I took it out of the rent. Mm-hmm. The water bill, I had no idea that you take water in an apartment. This is an apartment, it was listed in the newspaper as an apartment. And so, Natalia should have sat down and gone over the lease with me. She never gave me a lease before I signed it. She never gave me one. She wasn't there when I did sign it. Her sister Lydia wasn't there. I knew she was there. Excuse me? When did you sign it? On 27th. At what? June. At June. You just signed a lease on 27th of June. So you took first possession of the property, go away. Yeah. It wasn't July 1st. I don't know how you would say that. I parked my car. That's what the term is now. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm paying 2004. That's the lease. I want to keep away. So I said, I was going to explain to you that she gave me the 3 days, the 27th. She said I could have it, but I didn't live there. I parked the car there. You mean the possession there? Okay, all right. I thought you might like to know about the car. Okay. All right. So it was fraud, and I didn't know I had to pay heat, and I didn't know I had to pay water. And as the ad in the newspaper said, it just wasn't clear, and it wasn't clear over the phone. You have a copy of this paper that you responded to? I believe I do. Yeah. I'm not with them. Would you like to submit it later? Okay. Give it tonight, but I don't know. Now, the cats are not mine, and the damage she brings outdoors was not due to me. What's the other thing? I understand the testimony that the cats are concerned. You have any problem? No. You know them, you get eyes on them, you see them. When you asked me that previously, you said, do I have any cats? I do not. Did I have cats? Now you're asking me. Yes, I had 2 cats, but they were indoor cats. They never went outdoors. Now, who's indoors with those stolen? Mine. You said you didn't have any cats. You're supposed to outdoor cats live inside your house. What are they? When you asked me previously about a half an hour ago, previously, I'm just going back on what you just said. Doesn't matter what I said before. I just reiterate what you just said. All right? You don't have any cats. If you have 2 cats, they were house cats. What was it? Who was that? One question at a time, please. Sam, I didn't know this. No, I don't know what's going on here. cats while I lived there? Yeah. Yeah.
Did they live there?
Yes.
I think you lived someplace, right? Did you have any cats?
No, it wasn't the original question.
No, don't tell me what my original question.
I know it's the original question was. You said, do you have any friends?
Why is that?
No.
Because you denied it.
No, I did not deny that.
What else you got?
So the cleanout is not a valid claim because I didn't have any cats out there. My cats were indoor cats. The damage to the doors are the same when I left them as when I moved in. And now, and I repeat that I have no longer a relationship with Natalia after she gave me a 2-day notice to vacate. It was over. Okay, I covered the $183. I covered the $26. I covered the water, if that was fraud. I covered the cleanup, and I covered the door, and then about the landlord-tenant relationship after the notice 3 days of vacate. No. Yes. I couldn't reach anybody. I could call the numbers. And there was a recording. No. Because it took Natalia 9 days to fix the kitchen sink. Repeat the question. John Fuel said they charge $150 just to come up. And I couldn't take responsibility to pay $150 just to come out. Yes. No, because it took her 9 days to fix the kitchen sink before, and I wanted it fixed. Would you repeat that, please? Okay, by mail? By mail, okay, thank you. My address is block 124. Yes, sir, you have it. The Madam Clerk has my address. But block 124. No, I can't. And the zip code is that is 12075. You want to do my case?
So other cases intervene, and I have to go cue up the recorder and find the point where Glendora versus Nasty Natalia came to be heard. So Dixon takes care of all the other matters on the calendar, and I wait and wait and watch. And then he starts calling the case Buell versus, and then he stops. He couldn't get himself to say Buell versus Nasty Natalia. All right, let me play that for you. Now hold it right here, folks. I want you to notice that Dixon, it's my case, Glendora versus Nasty Natalia, and Dixon has the defendant speak first. Dixon has the defendant speak first.
Yeah,